Please join me in Gasho. From the three treasures, how rare and wondrous it is to have been born into human life, and now I live it. How rare and wondrous it is to be able to listen to the Buddha Dharma, and now I am able to hear it. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Anda Butsu, Namo Anda Butsu. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm not up here on the Naijing too often, so this is my big chance. The reason why I'm here, one of the reasons, is some of you know that Reverend Harada, Reverend Turner, and Reverend Wondra were at the National Council meeting this week. They went on Tuesday, and Reverend Harada and Reverend Turner are still there. Fortunately for me, Mutsumi Sensei came back to help rescue me so that I didn't have to do the whole service not by myself, but to lead it. So she came back, and I'm thrilled to have her here for support. So today, I am going to be talking about this topic, what it means to be human. So let's get started. Here's a photo of two of my greatest Buddhist teachers, Dr. Taitetsu Uno and my mother, Masako Hamada. So the history of my mother's family and the Unos goes back 3 generations. My grandfather knew Dr. Tetsu's and Taitetsu's father, and he was an important teacher for my mother as well. Mark and Tetsuo Uno were here for for the Winter Pacific Seminar that we held last month. And of course, they are amazing Buddhist teachers. This particular picture was taken at Dr. Taitetsu Uno's last public appearance, which happened in 2014. We had all 3 of the Uno ministers there at the Summer Pacific Seminar at the Jodo Shinshu Center in Berkeley, and this was his last appearance. And this photograph is very precious to me because it depicts the 2 of them together. In 2002, my husband Tom and I had the extraordinary good fortune to travel to Japan with Dr. Uno, with a group that included his wife Alice, some of their relatives, some friends, and members from their Sangha in Massachusetts. Dr. Uno was a professor at Smith College for 35 years. So they had a Sangha there in Massachusetts. When we went to Japan, Mark Uno happened to be at Ryukoku University, so he was also there in Japan at the same time that we were. Last week at our BEC book club meeting, I had the opportunity to remember that trip and share some words of wisdom from Dr. Tai that have stayed with me for the past 16 years. At that time, in 2002, I had not yet returned to OCBC, but being my mother's daughter and having been bombarded with Buddhism my whole life, I was still curious as to what he had to say about the nature of our life purpose and the Buddhist path. And here's what he said. He said that our fundamental task in life is to live the most truly human life possible. He said that it was a task that went beyond religious labels and doctrines and goes to the core of what we are. I wondered then, what exactly did that mean? And we'll explore that together. We just witnessed the Winter Olympics these past few weeks, and I was riveted to my TV. I'm sure many of you were. How many of you watched Olympic events? So exciting. I discovered several new heroes for myself, and here's one of them. Who knows who this is? Tell me, just say it. Chloe Kim. I just found her amazing. I wanted to try to insert her half pipe event, but I'm so computer illiterate that I didn't quite get there. So you get a still life picture. But if you saw it, amazing half pipe, and she's great. For all the athletes who went to the Olympics, one could say that their life purpose was to excel in their chosen sport, and getting to Korea was part of that quest. Isn't competing in sports such a human thing to do? What other animals do it? Like these athletes, each of us needs to find our most human purpose. For me, the Buddhist path is precisely this search to find the most authentically human life possible. In my humble opinion, that includes a spiritual connection to something greater than myself. As a Shin Buddhist, that means sorting out the meaning of Namo Amida Butsu and Amida Buddha. It can take a lifetime of refinement to figure that out. Through that process, we infuse deep meaning into those two ideas and also uncover the Buddha nature in ourselves and in all things. So how do we do this? There are many ways to answer this question, but I will give you 3 suggestions today. Know thyself was written on the forecourt of the Temple of Apollo in Delphi 2,500 years ago, which is about the time that the historical Shakyamuni Buddha lived. This saying was a cornerstone of inquiry for both Socrates and Plato. We've heard of those guys, and is the crucial question for anyone seeking the path to Buddhahood. Here are a couple of slides showing the temple. This is what it looked like. This is an artist's rendering, and so this is what they think it looked like. This is what it looks like today, 2,500 years later. Above all else, the Shin path is answering the question, who am I? Buddhism requires unflinching honesty with myself. As we experience life, we come to understand what matters. We all know that fulfillment does not come from external sources. And I have 2 quotes from a couple of famous people saying just that. Here's the famous reggae musician and human rights activist Bob Marley. He said, "Money is numbers, and numbers never end. If it takes money to be happy, your search for happiness will never end." How true. One of the great all-time comedians and someone who was able to put the great challenges of his life into his comedy is George Carlin. He said, "Trying to be happy by accumulating possessions is like trying to satisfy hunger by taping sandwiches all over your body." That's also very true. Clearly, the source of fulfillment has to come from within. One of my teachers, Dr. Nobuo Haneda, who will actually be here next month for Ohigan and the week after, he has always said Buddhism is nothing if not a path of self-examination. Our founder, Shinran Shonin, is our most compelling example of someone who did just that. Time and again, I've come to appreciate the depth of his honesty and his unflinching examination into the true nature of his heart and mind. Through his unwavering commitment to look at himself, he came to understand his deeply flawed nature and his total inability to save himself through his own efforts. From his teacher Honen Shonin, he realized that the power beyond the self, what we understand as Amida Buddha, was the source of his awakening. It is because of our ignorance, because of our delusion, and because of our egocentricity that we are compelled to recognize the power beyond the self that saves, supports, and never abandons us. Self-examination and deep honesty with yourself also leads to the ability to laugh at yourself, accept yourself, and ultimately love yourself. Okay, here's my second recommendation. Number 2, accept what comes into your life. By accepting everything that comes to us, rejecting nothing, especially our flawed and imperfect selves, we come to appreciate this profound gift of our never-to-be-repeated life and the countless ways we are constantly sustained. Going back to the Olympics, what do these athletes do when they don't win? The reality of all athletic competition is that there's only one winner. If your sport is your purpose, how does one cope with loss? How do we cope with our disappointments and losses? The answer goes back to my first point. Look within, see what the situation tells me about myself, and find meaning and purpose in what happened. This is a picture of a very happy U.S. American women's ice hockey team. What this picture doesn't tell you is the heartache of the loss of this team 4 years ago in Sochi, Russia, and the 20 years of frustration in not winning since 1998. 20 years. They used that experience to work harder and were finally rewarded with this year's victory, and that's why they're so happy. Would it still have been worthwhile if they had lost? Yes, it would. There is nobility in the effort, no matter the outcome. As we know, the Buddha was only concerned about 2 things, dukkha and the cessation of dukkha. Now, dukkha is kind of a hard word to translate, but we translate it often as suffering, but it also means disappointment. It's the realities of life. It's annoyances. It's the truth of old age, sickness, and death. It's all those things. Whether one could end their dukkha had everything to do with their relationship with 2 truths of the Buddha's awakening, namely impermanence and interconnectedness. Impermanence and interconnectedness are the crux of the Buddhist path. Our inability to be one with these truths leads to dukkha. However, to be in harmony with these 2 truths of existence leads us to nirvana. And in our tradition, we call that shinjin. It's a life of fulfillment. It also allows to come to an understanding of the world and leads me to my 3rd suggestion. Finding serenity, gratitude, and joy. Buddhism is not about prayer or asking for things to make your life better. It's about being in harmony with the flow of existence, with things as they are. Through that, we find creativity, flexibility, and freedom. And it's just not me who thinks that's the case. Our life is what our thoughts make it. This quote comes from Marcus Aurelius, last of the 5 good Roman emperors who lived in the 2nd century. Many of his thoughts parallel those of Buddhism. What he is saying is we have choices how we interpret the things that come into our lives. As Buddhists, as humans, we have the choice in deciding how we will perceive what happens to us. In summary, I hope you take these 3 suggestions to heart. Come to truly know who you are. It is an ongoing, lifelong process. 2, accept everything that comes into your life and see what it tells you about yourself. And 3, find meaning through the experiences of your life. Discover the joy, serenity, and gratitude that life offers you. Be kind to yourself even as we recognize our limitations. I hope these will help guide you as you discover your most truly human life. Please join me in Gassho. How rare and wondrous it is to have been born into human life, and now I live it. How rare and wondrous it is to be able to listen to the Buddha Dharma, and now I am able to hear it. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you.